Next, there's growing uncertainty over whether thousands of Rohingya Muslims who fled Burma for Bangladesh are to be repatriated or not. 150 from a preliminary 2,260 Rohingya were scheduled to head home this Thursday. Reports, though, saying hundreds have fled into the hills in southeast Bangladesh to avoid being forced to return. Well, speaking earlier, Bangladesh's Refugee Commissioner stressed that the repatriation was entirely voluntary. To bring us more on this story, I'm joined now by Rachael REILLY. She's Oxfam's Regional Advocacy Manager. Ms. REILLY, thanks very much for speaking to France 24. This is all a tad confusing. What is the latest? Are these Rohingya Muslims being forced to return, or is it indeed voluntary, as the Commissioner said?
So from what we saw today, the refugees were told that they could choose to board buses to return back to Myanmar. There were 5 buses in the camps, and the refugees were told very clearly that they could choose to get on those buses. In the end, no refugees did get on the buses. None of them chose to return. There were protests in the camps by the refugees saying that they didn't want to go back and expressing the conditions under which they would go back to Myanmar. So as we speak now, no refugees have been forced to return. But as you say, the situation remains very uncertain, unclear. And we're not really sure what will happen tomorrow and in the next days. But today, the refugees were told they could choose to go back, and they chose not to.
I mean, Ms. REILLY, talk us through, if you will, the conditions that the Rohingya Muslims have put forward as in terms of them returning home. What do they want before they say, yes, we're prepared to go back?
Yes, they're very clear, actually. I mean, let us not forget that it's just over a year since most of them fled Myanmar. They've fled very terrible conditions, very serious human rights violations. They suffered a lot. They're still very traumatized and in great fear. So really their number one condition is that they want to return when it's safe, when they can be assured that it's safe to return, and that the violence will stop and they can live in safety. They say very clearly that they want to enjoy equal rights as the other people living in Rakhine State. They want an end to the discrimination that they have suffered for decades now. Most of them don't have citizenship in Myanmar, and they are also saying that they want to have citizenship and have full rights. Most of them still living in Myanmar now are living under very strict restrictions on their freedom of movement. They can't move freely. They can't leave their villages. The children can't go to school. They can't go to work. They can't farm their land because they can't move freely. So they want to be able to move freely and live freely in Myanmar with equal rights. And to feel safe to go back, they want to be assured that those people responsible for the terrible human rights violations that they suffered are brought to justice.
I mean, in the wake of this military crackdown, I mean, the world, had its eyes firmly on, their exodus, if you will, to Bangladesh. Since then, media attention has not followed this quite so closely. What would you like the international community to do?
Well, I think there's 2 main things. While nearly 1 million refugees are living in Bangladesh in makeshift camps, it's really essential that the international community continues to support Bangladesh, which has been extremely generous in opening its borders and providing refuge to these people. But they are completely reliant on assistance every day for their food, for their water, for all their daily needs. So the international community must continue to provide assistance to the camps. And then in terms of conditions in Myanmar, it's very important that the international community, particularly Asian countries in the region, put diplomatic pressure on Myanmar to improve conditions for the Rohingya, to provide the Rohingya with equal rights, and to find lasting solutions to this crisis, which has carried on for decades. This isn't a new crisis. There are refugees in the camps who have fled 2-3 times already in their lifetime and gone back only to face the same problems again. So it's very important that the international community comes together to find lasting solutions this time.
OK, Rachael REILLY from Oxfam, thank you very much for your time today.